Hey friends, welcome back to another weekly What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor and I share What's for Dinner videos like this every Monday to hopefully motivate you to cook more for your family and give you some inspiration for meal ideas that you might want to try. This week we have a lot of comforting meals to share with you. It's been really cold here in Georgia, so we just had lots of warm, comforting meals. As always, any recipes that I mentioned will be linked in the description box. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday was our snow day, and so I made a big crock pot full of chili. I've shared this recipe many times. It has its own separate video, and I've shared it in vlogs and stuff. So one of those will be linked down below for you to go get the full recipe. So Friday night we had that with just cheese and then crackers, and then we had it again on Saturday night for dinner as well. Sunday night, I made my one-pot lasagna, like hamburger helper type meal. So I'm starting off by browning 1 pound of ground beef with some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and Italian seasoning. And then once that's all browned, you want to drain off any excess grease. And then you're going to add in 2 cups of beef broth, a 24-ounce jar of marinara, and 8 ounces of mafalda pasta if you can find it. If you can't, just use something small like bow ties or whatever you feel like, but just some sort of small pasta. I find the mafalda pasta at Trader Joe's, and it's pretty inexpensive too. I love buying pasta at Trader Joe's. And then you're going to stir all that together and bring it to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, you want to reduce the heat to a medium-low and cover it and let it simmer for about 15 minutes or until your pasta is done and most of that liquid is absorbed. And then I'm going to stir in 3/4 of a cup of blended cottage cheese. I use my immersion blender for this. You could also use like a regular blender, but I find I get the best consistency with the immersion blender, so I use that and blend it up. You could also use ricotta cheese if you don't like cottage cheese, but we like cottage cheese, so that is what we use. And then I'm also going to add 1 to 2 cups of shredded mozzarella. I just sprinkled that over the top and then put the lid on this and let that melt. And then once it's melted, it's ready to serve. If you wanted to, you could pop this in the oven for a couple minutes, even just under the broiler to get the cheese on top like browned, but I didn't feel like taking that extra step. I just served this with some toasted bread with some garlic butter on top, and it's delicious. If you've ever had the lasagna hamburger helper, it doesn't really taste like that, but it still kind of reminds me of it. It more tastes like lasagna, like you're eating a lasagna, because you've got pretty much everything that you would put in a lasagna in here, including like cottage cheese or ricotta if you do that. So it really tastes like a good homemade lasagna, just way easier to make. Next up, we've got this stuffing topped turkey pot pie, which I didn't even know if I was going to be able to share the original recipe with you guys since Lemonade was banned along with TikTok, but that's all back up now. So it will be linked out down below, but I'm also going to type out the recipe, just in case things go south again. So we're starting off here with some turkey that I had left over from Christmas. I cut that up really well, and then I added in a can of drained mixed veggies. I'm adding in 2 cans of cream of chicken soup, and then I'm doing some pepper, some onion powder, some paprika, and a little bit of garlic salt. I mixed all that together really well, and then in a pie plate I have put in 1 refrigerated pie crust, and then I'm putting the filling inside of that. And then you didn't see me do this, but I did prepare a box of stovetop stuffing, or like the Aldi brand. I did that on the stove and let it rest for a little bit, and now I'm just going to take that and spread it over the top, making sure to kind of cover the whole thing. If you don't want to do the stuffing, you could just top it with another pie crust. It'll just be a regular pot pie, but I really wanted this stuffing topped pot pie because it looks so good when I saw it on Lemonade. And then I baked this in the oven on 375 degrees for 45 minutes. Let it rest for a few minutes before cutting it, and then serve it up. And this was so good. So filling, so comforting, perfect for these cold nights. Such a cozy, yummy dinner. It tasted like Thanksgiving in a pie. Tuesday night we had crock pot ham and potato soup. We love this. Well, I say we. Me and the kids love this. Andy tolerates it. It's not his favorite thing. Potato soup, just not his favorite thing. Soup in general is just not his favorite thing, so he just kind of puts up with it because me and the kids like it. But I've made this quite a few times now. I used a leftover ham that I had in the freezer, and it turns out great every time. I will leave the recipe link down below, as well as a video where I showed it step by step. Next up, we did a spin on the TikTok feta pasta. This is like a spinach and artichoke pasta. So I am starting off with a bunch of tomatoes, like the grape tomatoes, in my baking dish, enough to really fill the bottom. It was a little bit more than one container just because I had it on hand. Usually I just use one container, but I used a little bit more this time. And I have drizzled them with some olive oil, seasoned them with some salt and pepper. I'm doing a little squeeze of the basil like paste that I had in the fridge and some garlic powder, and I'm stirring those all around so they get nice and coated. And then I am taking this creamy spinach and artichoke dip from Trader Joe's. It is in the frozen section, and I'm just popping that right in the middle like you would the feta. And then I did spritz it with a little bit of olive oil cooking spray. I stuck this in the oven on 425 for 45 minutes. While that was baking, I prepped some pasta. I did this fun like spiral pasta from Trader Joe's. I ended up cooking up the whole package, which I definitely would not recommend. I think that you should only do like 8 ounces for this amount of like sauce mixture that you're making. So just keep that in mind. With the full 16 ounces, it ended up being a little bit dry, but sometimes I just do things without thinking about them. And then I'm like, wait, that's definitely not the right amount. But by the time I realized it, it was too late. So once the tomatoes and cheese, like spinach artichoke dip, came out of the oven, I just mashed up all those tomatoes, kind of made a sauce. And then when my pasta was done, I stirred that in. And as I was stirring it in, that's when I realized it was definitely too much pasta. So highly recommend only doing 8 ounces of pasta, but this still turned out good. I did need to season it with a little bit more salt, but other than that, it was pretty good. Just a little bit dry too. And then I grilled up some chicken on my Cuisinart griddler with just like some Tony's grill seasoning, and then topped that on top of the pasta, and that was dinner. And finally, the last meal of the week, we had crock pot beef stew. So I'm starting off here with 2.5 pounds of beef stew meat in my crock pot, and I'm seasoning that with some salt and pepper and Italian seasoning. And then I'm going to lay on 3 bay leaves. And then I have already prepped all of my veggies and stuff, so I'm just going to dump those in. It is 1 pound of baby gold potatoes that I've cut in half, 4 large carrots that I have peeled and cut into bite-sized pieces, 3 stalks of celery that I've chopped, half of an onion chopped, and about 6 cloves of minced garlic. Then in a measuring cup, I have whisked together 3 cups of beef broth with 1 can of tomato paste, a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and I whisked that together really well and then just poured that over the top, and then that's it. Put a lid on this, and I let it cook on low for like 9 hours. And then when you get done, all you have to do is mix in some cornstarch and water. I made a little cornstarch slurry with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and some water, and I stirred that in and also picked out the bay leaves. And once you stir in the cornstarch, then I had turned off the heat and just let this sit for about 10 minutes, and it got nice and thick. You could serve this over rice if you wanted to. I was gonna do that, and then I just didn't feel like it this night, so we just ate a bowl of it with some bread on the side. This, I think, is the second time I have made this specific beef stew recipe. I like it so much. There was another one that I had tried before and it just wasn't my favorite. This one is like classic beef stew. It's got really good flavor and it's pretty simple and easy to make. You will see in the recipe down below, if you click on it, it does recommend like searing the meat like beforehand. I have not done that either time that I made this recipe. When I make crockpot recipes, I usually want like very simple. I don't want to have to cook in one thing and then move it to the crockpot. I really don't like doing that. So if I can skip it, I will. That is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below if you plan on trying any of the recipes that I mentioned here today. I hope y'all have a great week, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.